Hey, let's talk about what's harder, Navy SEAL training Hell Week or running 250 miles. What's up, guys? A lot of you guys have already heard me talk about our partner at Barbell Apparel. I want to introduce you to the breeches that I've got on right now. These are called the Anything Pants by Barbell Apparel. It's a pretty awesome piece of kit to have. It's almost a crossover between like a hiking or backpacking pant and a dress pant. They're super comfortable, they're super lightweight, they're breathable, they look good, so they serve many functions, but they have more durability than what you would call a dress pant, right? They're gusseted, you can move in them, they have pockets, and they're just kind of fit that spot of everyday wear. No matter what you're doing, you want to look good, you want to move, you want to be able to get out and be outside and hike around and move. These pants are kind of going to fit the bill for all of those activities. So this is the Anything Pant from Barbell. I'm enjoying it. I ask that you guys support the companies that support us here at 3 of 7 Project. It makes a big difference. Companies like Barbell, we have long conversations and we build relationships with the owners. We vet them. We make sure that we are in alignment in terms of values and vision. And obviously we vet the products too. Barbell's been an awesome partner for us here at 3 of 7 Project. They're awesome people with a top-notch product that we use in our day-to-day life every single day. So we appreciate your partnership. We appreciate you guys supporting the companies that support this show and 3 of 7 Project. It makes a tremendous difference. Check them out at barbellapparel.com. The Anything Pant. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Backyard Conversations. Today we're going to talk about what's harder, Hell Week in Navy SEAL training, BUDS, or a race that I just recently ran called the Cocodona 250. Just let me explain to you a little bit about these two events if you don't know. A lot of you guys know about Hell Week. It's a singular evolution within SEAL training, all right? So we're not talking about what's harder, SEAL training as a whole or running 250 miles. We're comparing the evolution of Hell Week with the Cocodona 250 because I've done them both. And I think there's a good comparison between the two. All right? Hell Week is about 5 days long. It's right kind of at the end of first phase of SEAL training. You're awake most of the time. You're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's where the majority of people usually quit training, is during Hell Week. Cocodona 250 is a 250-mile foot race through the high desert of Arizona. Starts in Black Canyon City and runs all the way to Flagstaff. And in terms of time, they're both about equal. So Hell Week's about 5 days long. Cocodona 250, you get about 5 days to run that race. Now, obviously, some people run it in 3.5 days, but a lot of people, it takes them about 5 days to run this thing. So time-wise, the comparison is equal. Now we're going to break this thing down into 4 other categories and talk about and hopefully come to a conclusion of which one of these evolutions is more difficult or was more difficult for me. And I think it's cool to talk about this because a lot of people regret not joining the military. A lot of people regret not going into special operations because they think that if they would have done that, it would be like the ultimate test of their physical, their grit, right? Their physical ability. They think that they'll never have the opportunity to test themselves physically and mentally because they didn't go into special operations. Well, I think that's a lie. I think you can do things that are just as hard as anything you would have done in special operations if you choose to do them now as a civilian. So let's break this thing down and talk about which one's harder. So first thing we're going to talk about in terms of difficulty, again, we said time-wise, they're both about the same, the Cocodona and Hell Week. Let's talk about weather conditions, all right? Weather conditions are something, both of these events are obviously outdoors, and weather conditions is a factor that can significantly play into the difficulty that you're going to experience while you're out doing some massive challenge like the Cocodona or like Hell Week. Hell Week is in Southern California on Coronado Island. Weather conditions are about as good as you could possibly want, okay? Whether it's winter, whether it's summer, there on Coronado Island, it never really gets super cold, and it also never really gets super hot. If you guys have never been there, the climate's nice and stable. They get very little rain. You get nice soft sunshine, and it's literally the prime place to do anything in terms of weather. Cocodona's a different story, all right? This race that we ran in terms of weather conditions, we started this event just north of Phoenix in temperatures that were over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Fully exposed to a really, really strong, harsh sun that would literally burn your skin right through your clothes and burn your skin, dry your nose out, your lips out, just obliterate you. It was hot. I'm talking real hot. And we're moving across the terrain fully exposed. And later on in the race, as we gain altitude, the weather then changes to extreme cold. So we had everything in terms of weather conditions in Cocodona from 100 plus degree Fahrenheit to single digit temperatures. We had everything from beating sun to hail, sleet, rain. We just had the full spectrum of exposure and the full spectrum of weather conditions at Cocodona versus Hell Week. You're in a nice stable environment in terms of weather conditions and easy day. So when we look at that, and weather conditions are a factor in the difficulty of any big challenge, Cocodona definitely, hands down, no contest, harder. So next thing that we're going to talk about to try to figure out which one of these is harder is the actual environment. So not the weather that's being created, but the environment that we're in. In Cocodona, we were basically in mountainous terrain. It was a hard environment. It was extremely rocky. Some of it was hard to move across. There was a lot of climbing involved. It was an extreme surface, an extreme place in terms of environment. But the one thing that Cocodona didn't have, that Hell Week did have, was cold water and sand. All right? So during Hell Week, you're spending most of your time on the beach or somewhere around the beach. You're in the ocean a lot, and the Pacific Ocean is extremely cold, at least in my opinion. I'm a southern boy. I don't like the cold, and the Pacific Ocean to me is cold, all right? When you mix cold water with and being wet all the time with sand, that in my opinion is a recipe for misery, all right? In Hell Week, you spend a lot of time in that cold water being surf tortured. and then you're getting out and you're rolling around in that sand, and you're turning yourself into a sugar cookie, and that sand and the grit of that sand causes your entire body to chafe. It gets in every orifice of your body, in your ears, in your eyes, all in your clothes, between your legs, and it basically obliterates your body, all right? So although the environment that we were moving through in Cocodona, that desert environment, mountainous environment, was difficult, I'm going to have to say the environment that we were in during Hell Week, because of the cold water and because of the sand, was a more miserable and more challenging environment to deal with. So Hell Week gets it on the difficulty in terms of environment. So now we're going to talk about the actual activity. All right, what was harder? The things that we were doing, the physical activity that we were doing during Hell Week, or the physical activity that we were doing during Cocodona, which was just running, right? Running 250 miles. Which is harder? In Hell Week, there's a whole array of different things that you're doing. Everything from obstacle courses to swimming to running, log PT, running with boats on your heads, paddling. There's just, it's a vast array in terms of activity. Now, all of those activities are difficult in and of themselves, but because, for me personally, because you're switching back and forth from one to the other, you're allowing different muscle groups to kind of relax a little bit. You're not getting so mentally overwhelmed by the sheer repetition of doing the same thing over and over again. That to me was a good thing. Just the diversity of activities that physical activities that you had to do during Hell Week, versus in Cocodona, you were doing the same activity over the course of 250 miles for 5 days straight. Running is probably the single hardest thing that you can do, or stress that you can put on your body. The impact from running, and what it does to the muscles all throughout your legs, your hips, your lower back. And in Cocodona, you're also running with a significant amount of weight on you. Sections of the course, you're carrying 4 liters of water, a couple thousand calories, and all of the emergency gear that you need on you in your running vest. So that even compounds the impact that single repetitive activity is having on your physical body. Because there was no break from that, because there was no change in that, because we were running over extremely challenging terrain and environment, I'm going to say the actual activity of running 250 miles through those mountains at altitude was harder than the actual activity, the physical challenge of Hell Week. So Cocodona gets it. So the last thing that we're going to make the comparison on is which one of these two events, in my recollection, was more mentally challenging, Hell Week or Cocodona. We talked about which one physically was harder, which one now was mentally harder, all right? We'll start with Hell Week. In Hell Week, you are being told what to do the entire time, right? The only decision that you have to make is the decision to just keep going. There's not a ton of problem solving that needs to happen during Hell Week. Everything's provided for you. You're just moving forward, accomplishing the task that has been, laid out for you by the instructor cadre. You know, and there's some similarities to Cocodona too in terms of that. Another thing, in Hell Week, everything for me in that event, my entire future hinged upon me getting through Hell Week. This was my job, right? This was my livelihood. This was the path that I had chosen long term for my life. Now that for me was a big motivator. Having that much riding on me accomplishing or getting through this challenge of Hell Week was a big motivator for me. It actually, for me, made getting through that mentally, it made it easier because it took the choice, it took the temptation or the choice to quit. It kind of really just took that off the table, right? Because everything I knew in my life was hinged upon me making it through this training in order for me to go and do what I had decided to do as a career, as my lifestyle choice and my job. Another thing about Hell Week, you are with a boat crew the whole time that you're going through Hell Week. You are never alone. You're never alone. You have a team that's surrounding you the entire time, right? And usually within that boat crew, there's usually at any moment in time, there's someone who's feeling good. They're in a high spot, right? And they're there to encourage. They're there to lift up the men around, you know, in the boat crew, and you can kind of lean on each other. You can depend on each other. You can take care of each other. So having that team environment takes some of the mental strain or the mental difficulty off of you as an individual. And everyone shares that load as everyone goes through highs and lows, right? But when you're part of that team or that boat crew, it's not just you, right? Not everything is just relying on you. Now, at Cocodona, there is the temptation, there's more temptation to stop because nobody cares. There's nothing's going to change about the trajectory of your career, your livelihood, your life. If you quit, well, nothing's going to change, right? Nothing at all. I mean, it's on you. Everything's on you. The decision to keep moving has to just be, is motivated purely by your own will. There's no benefit coming afterwards. It's just purely your will. That's it. Nobody's telling you what to do out there. You know you have to run, but nobody's telling you what you should eat. Nobody's telling you which direction you should go. Nobody's telling you it's all on you, man. And in Cocodona, for a lot of runners, they spend a lot of time by themselves. And everyone's going to spend a good chunk of time by themselves because you can only have pacers at this race through a certain portion of the course. So you don't have that team around you. And there are moments that get very, very lonesome, very, very mentally challenging, because nobody cares. There's nothing riding on this. And you just, out of your sheer will to keep moving, that is the only reasoning that you can come up with to make it through this dang thing. So in terms of what is more mentally challenging, for me personally, Cocodona was more mentally challenging to complete than Hell Week. So guys, all in all, after looking at those specific aspects, I'm going to say that finishing the Cocodona 250 mile foot race was harder, more difficult, more challenging for me personally than making it through Hell Week in Navy SEAL training. Again, we're not comparing all of SEAL training to Cocodona. We're comparing Hell Week to Cocodona. That's the comparison we're making here. If we said what was harder, Cocodona or Buds, which is 6 months long, we're definitely going to go with Buds was harder. But as a single evolution, Hell Week and Cocodona, Cocodona was the harder challenge for me personally. So if you're beating yourself up about not joining Special Forces because you weren't and you're beating yourself up because you weren't able to go through some crucible like Hell Week, I want to tell you there are other ways to test yourself that are just as hard, if not harder, than what you would have experienced in Hell Week or some other military training pipeline. That's the honest truth. Enough said.